All right, so this is going to be the video for Project 3, Part B, going over property management and including it into the brokerage simulation that we started over the past two projects. So, getting into the first part of this project, the instructions were given that two different groups for the class were going to get different amounts for investors, but given that my last name starts with a K, I got the large investor of $20 million, which is actually a significant amount compared to the values that I was using for the first two projects. So I tried to up the ante a little bit. I tried to make it at least to where $20 million wasn't a ridiculous amount, but I'll get into it later. So first off, I just wanted to get into the property estimates that I used for both the property that I would be buying and for what the average monthly rent is. I just kind of kept it all as averages, just as I did in the past two projects, just to kind of keep it even. So, yeah, here's the prices and the average rent for both apartments and for houses. I also looked into using office buildings, but that is a lot more expensive and it's also a little bit harder to estimate. So I kept it just housing and apartment buildings for now. Or actually, I should mention apartment, just rooms, like just one apartment. So the revenue estimates that I got, I just kind of took a number that I felt comfortable with and said with the $20 million loan that we could get about 8 houses and 10 apartments. Like I said, that's just mentioning one apartment, not the entire apartment building. So the rental income for the houses was about $174,000 per year, and the rental income for apartments was about $230,000, and that's going off of the average for the monthly rents for both of those, and then multiplied by the number of houses or apartments. I also added in just 1% of other income for late fees or anything like that that might come up, just to add a little bit extra, but that only totaled out to about $4,000 for the year. So just another little piece to add in there. Then I started looking into the fixed cost estimates. So I have the rent just for our actual brokerage, like for our firm itself. And then I added in utilities and groundskeeping for the owned properties for the houses and the apartments. That can obviously be negotiated with concessions and stuff, but I just wanted to add that in there. And then I was assuming that we would pick up a property management team or somebody else to take care of it, given that I'm supposed to be assuming that I'm a broker at this firm and I probably wouldn't want to be doing everything. So just estimated about 4 people. The average salary was, I think it was 50,000 or something like that. I actually changed it to 2. I meant to change that number, but just two property management team members. So averaging about 60,000 per salary. And then I also upped payroll services a little bit as we were expanding, and some of the other maintenance into internet, phones, utilities, all that stuff for the firm. Then the variable cost estimates, the new ones that I added here was just renovations and repairs. I'm estimating about 40,000 per year. I mapped that out monthly, which you can see in the Excel spreadsheet, but the total for the year was about 40,000. I just kind of took estimates of what it might be. And then I increased some of the licensing fees and liability insurance and the miscellaneous for just to give some leeway for things that might happen, and taking into account the expansion that's going to be going on here. And the total expenses, as you'll see down here, is $433,900 for the year, and I think estimates was $409,000. So you'll notice that revenues is actually lower than the expenses for the year, which we'll get into later. But next week I brought in the changes in capital, and this is starting to look at like the profit or loss for the year, going off of this budget. So the ending balance for year 3 in capital was about $138,000 before we got $20 million in investments. And the total expenses for houses and apartments, this was going off the averages for the cost of houses and apartments, and multiplied that by the amount that we bought, and that was about 6.8 million, which is going to be subtracted from the 20 million investment because that's the money that we're using to invest. So I went ahead and included the entire monthly spreadsheet for all of the profit and losses month by month, just so you could look at them. As you can see, there's a couple good months, a couple bad months. It's really, really close. So, but the thing that is not so good for the company is that both years, keeping that this is going to be something that stays steady each year, is about negative 21,000. So we are losing about 21,000 a year, which is part of the reason that I kept such a significant amount of the investment out of investing into houses and apartments. I wanted to leave a little bit of room just in case we wanted to go somewhere else with it, or just in case. And also, there's not really a need to spend $20 million in 1 year. So, kind of looking at what went wrong, it's pretty obvious that expenses are just outweighing revenues here. The difference was 24,000, which doesn't seem like a lot, but if you're constantly year over year just losing money, it's obviously not good for the business. You want to be gaining money each year. I expected a bad year for the first one, given the giant amount of money that we spent to get into this part of the business, but I didn't expect it to stay steady throughout the whole year. So looking at what went wrong, it was basically just expenses. It was I added in all the renovations and repairs, all the insurance increases, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of that could have been overestimated. Revenues could have been underestimated. But whatever the case, this simulation is not looking good. It's looking like a failing company. So looking into how it can be fixed, one of the most obvious things is to look into reducing costs, just all around the board, whether it's looking into cheaper insurance or try not to spend as much on renovations and repairs, especially if they're not needed. Looking into pretty much just anything across the board that we can decrease the cost just to bring our profit at the end of the year up. But outside of that, we could also look into hiring an analysis team for property management specific, just because it was doing fine before we added this. So it might be worth looking at, where we're going wrong, where we're losing money, and how we can fix it. To also kind of go against what I was just saying earlier, we could look into renovating some of these properties and increasing some of our monthly rent, as I showed at the bottom down there. And I wouldn't necessarily want to increase monthly rent without reason. That seems a little unfair, and the tenants probably wouldn't like that. But if all else fails, we could start looking into new markets and looking for new places to invest, and maybe start selling some of the failing properties. Whatever the analysis team was to tell us is going on with it, maybe we could try and cut some of that stuff out, cut our losses, and look into other parts of the business. So I think that is about it for it. These are just a couple of the sources that I use to get the averages. I wanted to just include those so you could see where I got the numbers. But yeah, essentially we just need to look into cutting down costs and figuring out why we're not making money from this investment. And that's it. Thank you.